Morning, everybody. Thanks for watching. So I apologize about my last video. It cut off for some reason, and I didn't want to do it again. I did the whole video and it cut off halfway through, so I didn't know that at the time. But when I saw that it was only halfway through, I didn't want to do the first half again, so I just went ahead and posted it. Um, but I apologize that it ended abruptly and I didn't get to finish what I was saying. I appreciate all the comments too. I've been traveling for work, so I didn't have a chance to respond to them, but I did read them all, and I appreciate the comments as always. So thank you guys. Um, I'm going to finish up with this today. One of the main points that I was talking about in my previous video is just the dark to light concept. One of the best ways to deceive someone is give them two choices and then eliminate one of those choices by making it so diabolically evil that people will run to the other choice just to avoid the evil choice. So you're stacking the solution and presenting an obvious solution to overcome evil that people are going to gravitate towards and really have no choice, because if they don't make that choice, then they're going to be associated with the horrible evil. And no matter what you believe politically, I think that this evil is going to continue to be exposed. It's happening now. It's going to continue to happen that way. And this great evil that we've been a part of, this system of government and entertainment and establishment, will come out to be and be exposed as being more and more evil each and every day, until the point a solution is provided, and this solution to overcome the evil is going to be so attractive that everyone's going to want to go to this solution and choose to go to this solution. And those in this solution, if people don't join them, they'll say, "Oh, you want to be a part of this evil system? Don't you see how evil it is?" And they'll convince people and maybe even guilt people into joining the solution to this evil. But my point is that that system, the new system, the system that replaces the evil system, is going to be the true deception, because this evil system doesn't deceive anybody. You have to be kind of brain dead, I think. Not really, maybe that's a mean term, but you really got to not be paying attention. I think most of us understand the evil that's going on. I don't need to describe that for you. But the solution that's presented, that's the deception, because it's going to be disguised as being good. A deception isn't obvious. That's why it's a deception. So if you see obvious evil, then that's not the deception. The deception is going to appear good. It's going to appear righteous. And it's going to appear to be a solution for this evil. And that's what this new system is going to bring. It's going to bring solutions to all of this. And it's going to get people to reject that evil, rightly so, and then jump into the only other system presented. And those that run the system, my point was in my last video, which I didn't get to finish, I'm going to finish today, is that people in that system will use Jesus Christ to promote their system and say that he's a part of it. They'll quote his teachings. They'll say that he was a good moral leader. They say he's a good guy. But anybody that mentions Jesus Christ and does not mention his death for sin, his entombment, and his resurrection as the only way to be saved, then there is a possibility that they will use Jesus to deceive you. Because Jesus Christ's teachings did not enter death. Our faith did not enter death. Jesus Christ entered death. That's our problem. Our problem is death. And Jesus Christ entered it. was dead and God resurrected him to be the firstborn of a new creation. He took all of humanity on that cross with him. When God killed Christ, God killed sin and the old humanity. And Jesus Christ took all of us in his arms on that cross, dragged us down to death with him so that he could drag us up when he was resurrected. So that not only did he become a new creation, the firstborn of a new creation, but we, each in our own order, will become exactly like Christ and be a part of that new creation. That's how we get our righteousness. We get it from Jesus Christ's faith and participating in his death and his resurrection. That way is the only way. And these people that tout Jesus Christ like he was a good guy and was smart and a great moral leader and follow his teachings, but don't talk about that or deny that, they could be just as deceptive as anybody, even though they mention the name of Jesus. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here in a moment. But it's the whole dark to light concept. Tucker Carlson now is doing podcasts, and I watch too much. I mean, I don't watch as much as I used to, but I need to just stop watching videos. I kind of just check in here or there just to see what's going on in this world. And I know those of us that believe in the snatching away, which I am one of them, say, oh, well, we won't be here for this. Well, we're still here. And a lot of this stuff is forming, whether this is just a guise and they're faking it, or this is really the formation of it, which I think it is. You can see it happening today. And even if it's not the real thing, there's concepts and strategies that are being used today that are very similar to what is going to happen in the end times. So I think it's a logical conclusion to believe that we're starting to see the setup of this. And, these things can be accelerated and can happen at any time. So I just, for those of us that are going to be still alive, and perhaps for people that are here later after the snatching away, to pay attention to understand some of these things is important. So I'm just going to touch on a few of them. But anyway, Tucker Carlson was doing an interview to some country, I think country music star, something Rich. I don't know his name. Maybe Seth Rich. I don't know. But they were talking about the mark of the beast and Revelation and all that. Just a thought of mine is, okay, this is kind of mainstream now. I know Tucker Carlson, got fired from Fox or whatever, like that wasn't planned, but okay. So he's still mainstream media. I mean, he's still got a large following, but my point is why is, and I've seen other videos, the book of Revelation, the rapture, mark of the beast being talked about a lot more. Well, it's the dark to light thing. How do you get people to buy into what you're selling? Well, let's look at the mark of the beast. How are you going to get people to take the mark of the beast? Well, first, you inform them of the mark of the beast. So you get a buzz going where people are knowledgeable about the mark of the beast. You get them interested in it. You get them thinking about it. And then step two is to present an obviously evil mark of the beast, like, brain chip that Elon Musk wants to put in your head, or this vaccination thing that Bill Gates wants to put in your right hand. So you present that, and people are going to recognize that that's so obviously not something we should do, that it's obviously the mark of the beast, so they're going to reject it. But that's the whole point. You're going to reject the obvious mark of the beast in order to accept the deceptive mark of the beast. So why would we be talking about the mark of the beast? Why are they giving you this information? Because people are interested in it. So now we're going to create a narrative of what it is, and then they're going to present the obvious mark of the beast. Everyone's saying that's the mark of the beast. That's the mark of the beast. We got to reject it. And then they'll come up, the very same people that presented the mark of the beast to you will say, yeah, we got to not do that, and we got to do this. We got to accept this in order to reject the mark of the beast. But that thing that they do accept is the deception, and it is the mark of the beast. And I don't know what that's going to be. It could be the acceptance of some sort of righteous law in order to buck this evil that has plagued our world. Oh, yeah, they're the evil. They're presenting the mark of the beast. We got to reject it. And if you reject the mark of the beast, join us, this righteousness, this law, and accept that. And maybe that is the true mark of the beast. And they get you unwillingly to accept something. Well, actually, willingly. They get you to accept it because they present the evil option that you obviously have to reject. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I believe that's the way things are going to operate here as we move closer to this election and closer towards Jesus Christ's return. So, back to my original point. I'm going to give two examples here of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Donald Trump was watching a speech of his, this is a while back, where he started talking about Jesus, and he said he was pumping himself up. I mean, the guy's a, I don't want to bash people, but he was talking about himself, talking about how great he was. But then he says, I'm not the most famous person in the world. He says, Jesus Christ is. And everyone started roaring. And then things come out like this is an admission of his belief in Jesus. Now, no, it's not. Just because you say someone's more famous than you doesn't mean anything. And I don't know what Donald Trump believes, and it's not my job to know that. But it's an example of how people now come out and say, "Oh, look, he supports Jesus. He's a believer." So now they're going to even be more apt to listen to what he has to say, even though he's never talked about having faith in Jesus, as far as I know. I just want people to be aware of that association, that Jesus will be used, and it'll be painted in a positive light. And this will be done in order to bring in people that want to do right by Jesus, and they think that these guys are on Jesus' side or Jesus is on their side. They're going to say, that's where I want to be. What a brilliant deception to actually use the name of the Son of God, but not take it to what he actually is. The Son of God, and the only one that can save humanity through his death for sin, his entombment, and his resurrection. I'm going to say that like 10 times in this video. I had a friend tell me one time, and man, you say that like 8 times in one of your videos. I try not to make a video where I don't say that. That's how important it is. You can know every one of Jesus' teachings. You can know that he was a great guy. You can know everything about him. If you don't know his death for sin, his entombment, and his resurrection, you can be deceived. Because you can't be deceived if you know that it's Christ that entered death for sin. Your sin was dead and was resurrected. You can't be deceived. If you, no one can manipulate that. See, they can manipulate teachings. They can manipulate righteousness. They can manipulate things that are done and not done, but they cannot manipulate the fact that we all die in Adam and that Christ entered that death and was resurrected for this new life and gives us God's righteousness through his faith, his death for sin, his entombment, and his resurrection. We have God's righteousness, and this is the only way we get God's righteousness. That can't be manipulated or faked. It's a fact. It's done, and it's done for all humanity. No one can take it away from you. Just like we didn't get death from Adam by any choice of our own or anything we did, we inherited it from him. In the exact same way, we get this new life from Christ. We didn't do anything to get it. We can't do anything to lose it. No politician, no preacher, no person can take it away from you by their teachings of you have to do this or you have to do that, because Christ did it. And we get what Christ did just like we got what Adam did, through no choice of our own, through Christ, through what he did. And we all get this each in our own order. But you can manipulate this if you're just talking about teachings or if you're even talking about your own faith. And I'm going to go over that here in a moment, towards the end of the video. Elon Musk is another example. He was asked in an interview, and he's very influential, big Trump supporter now, and getting more and more every day into politics. I don't know why anyone listens to him. Oh, I do know why, because he's a billionaire. He's been given this project and this position in order to be influential. So he was in an interview and he was asked, I believe, to accept Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior. I don't know who was doing the podcast. I don't know if it was a church group or whatever. And the title of the video says, Elon Musk says yes to Jesus. But this is what Elon Musk said in my paraphrased version. He said that he believes in Jesus' teachings. He thinks forgiveness is great, the golden rule, turn the other cheek, things like that. But he never said yes to Jesus. He said yes to his teachings, and he said that he was a good moral leader, more or less. But the headlines say, Elon Musk says yes to Jesus. No, he didn't. Just because you accept his teachings and you think he was a great leader doesn't mean that you said yes to Jesus. But someone just going around just watching YouTube videos sees that Elon Musk says yes to Jesus. Even if they don't watch the video, they're aligned with, okay, I want to be on Jesus' side. Elon Musk is, okay, so I can listen to Elon Musk. Even though I guarantee none of these men, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know what people believe. I'm just setting up a possible deception. So I'll say it generally. People that say they believe in the teachings of Jesus and that he was a good guy, is a moral leader, and I stand for him, if they don't believe or present Jesus as being the one and the only one that will save humanity, and they don't present him as dying for our sin, being dead, and being resurrected for our salvation, and the only way of salvation, then again they can use Jesus to get people on their side while actually and eventually denying the work of Jesus. I mean, you look at, these comparisons are getting worse and worse too. I saw a picture the other day of, a caricature a caricature picture of Jesus with a bandage on his ear. And that's just straight blasphemy. In this, trying to compare Jesus and Trump, like Jesus is on Trump's side. There's pictures of Jesus and Trump together and putting Trump on this equal footing. Now, I know most Christians would see through that and say, whoa, and they'll back up. But as we get to the end here, this process of, especially when the signs and wonders increase, this comparison will draw associations with people so that they'll look at certain leaders as savior figures. And this seems to be happening more and more here. So it's the same with, as I talked about before, this He Gets Us campaign. These commercials that present Jesus as some social justice warrior and aligning us with, those people that go out for a cause and do all these things. Oh yeah, Jesus is with you, but they never mention Jesus' completed work and what he did on the cross. So you can put Jesus in a positive light and say you're for him, all the while leading that up to denying him. I had a friend in college. There's this girl, and she was just a friend, but she used to watch that Jerry Springer show all the time. I don't know if you guys, I don't know how old you have to be to remember Jerry Springer. But he's one of those shows that just had ridiculous people engaged in ridiculous things, and they'd come out in front of an audience and hash out their sicko problems. Like why anyone would want to air that out on national TV, I don't know. But it's like you're screwing your aunt, or you have 8 boyfriends at the same. Just these ridiculous things, and then they'd get on fights and stage. It's just disgusting stuff. She would watch it every day, and I'm like, I look at her. Not that I was some righteous being in college, but the show was just awful. And I mean, it was entertaining. It was funny at times, I guess, but it was just overall bad. And I'm like, why do you watch that show? And she said, because it makes me feel good about myself. And I'm like, if you need to watch that show to feel good about yourself, you got some problems. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And that's what this political show is. It's the Jerry Springer show. It's a clown show being run by clowns, puppets. I mean, the way these people act, what they say, the teachings that are going out in this world. I mean, it's the Jerry Springer show on steroids happening in real life. So this righteousness to overcome this Jerry Springer show is going to make people feel good about themselves by choosing it, because otherwise they're in the Jerry Springer show. So it's going to make them feel good about themselves in order to be able to choose something above and beyond this evil that was presented. But in choosing that, it's going to create a false sense of righteousness that people will depend on in order to reject the only way we get true righteousness, which is through what I've explained in this video, through Jesus Christ's death for sin, his entombment, and his resurrection. See, it doesn't matter if you're a horrible, sinning human being, and then person 2 is not as big of sinner as you and does a lot of things right. It doesn't matter how great the sinner and how righteous the non-sinner is. That righteous non-sinner will never have the righteousness high enough to achieve God's righteousness, the righteousness of God. And just because the difference between the evil person and the righteous person is so great, it doesn't matter. But what it's going to do is it's going to produce a greater sense of righteousness because you came and are far above that great evil, that it's going to give you more of an inclination to trust that righteousness. And of course, no human being is a non sinner. We're all sinners. We're all under the same unrighteousness. And there's only one way to obtain this righteousness, and it's through Jesus Christ's death for sin, his entombment, and his resurrection. So when we talk about man of lawlessness or any end time leaders, they do hold this, I believe, this antichrist spirit. And if you look at what John wrote about the antichrist, I just kind of want to make this point as well, is that the antichrist is not going to be an obvious evil. It's going to be set up as being there as an alternative to Christ, but very similar to Christ. Anti means instead. So it's not going to be opposite. It's going to be instead of Christ. An obvious evil, as I've talked about, is not going to deceive anyone. That's not what the man of lawlessness or this antichrist spirit is. This man of lawlessness and this antichrist spirit is going to be a deception. So it's going to appear to be like Jesus, but it's going to attempt to take Jesus' place. On the surface, they include Jesus, but when it comes right down to it, they'll reject Jesus. If you look at John here, little children, this is 1 John 2:18 to 20. Little children, it is the last hour, and according as you hear that the Antichrist is coming, now also there have come to be many Antichrists, whence we know that it is the last hour. Out of us they come. Now John was a believer, and he's saying that these Antichrists, that many of them were about in his time, and he says, out of us they come, but they were not of us. For if they were of us, they would have remained with us. So they were with them, and now they didn't remain. But this is not something that this spirit and this deception is not something that comes opposite of what a believer is. John's saying that they were believers. These antichrists were believers. And now they strayed. So they're coming from within. And that's very different than looking at something that is complete opposite. Because from within, you can get these subtle deceptions that people don't pick up on. John also says, for many deceivers came into the world who are not avowing Jesus Christ coming in flesh. This is the deceiver and the antichrist. So there are many people that will even encompass Jesus Christ in what they're saying. But if they do not believe that Jesus Christ himself will come in the flesh, then they are denying Jesus Christ. There are many who say, oh, we're going to correct this world. Onward, Christian soldier. We're going to make everything right. And then Jesus can come down and we can say, we set up your kingdom, Jesus. Okay, now you can take over. No, the world, as I've said before, will be at its worst stage. It'll be at the worst point of history. That is when Jesus comes and cleans off the table and sets up his kingdom. So again, my main point is that using the teachings of Jesus and praising him, putting him in a positive light, can ultimately be a setup in order to get people to buy into the deception. So, as we go here in the next months, years, I think the big thing to look out for is a righteousness being set up to deny God's righteousness. Now, what is God's righteousness? That is talked about in Romans 3:21. I'm going to read down to verse 23 here. Yet now, apart from law, a righteousness of God is manifest, being attested by the law and the prophets, yet a righteousness of God through Jesus Christ's faith, for all and on all who are believing, for there is no distinction. For all sinned and are wanting of the glory of God. So we are dead to the law of sin and death. That's what Jesus Christ did. Because God gave a law, and this law was not accomplished by anybody. And that was part of God's purpose, in order to show humanity that they cannot live up to the standard of righteousness of God. So now, apart from law, Jesus Christ's faith gives us God's righteousness, his faith to go into death and that God would resurrect him. So that is the end of the law. Jesus Christ completed the law. For the circumcision, he was an escort to the law, and he completed the law. The uncircumcision, they never got the law. So anyone going back to law or doing things in order to get this righteousness, they are deceived. Because this righteousness only comes not by us completing the law or doing good works, but it comes through the faith of Jesus Christ, his death for sin, his entombment, and his resurrection. So Romans 10:1 through 4, I think describes people and many Christians today that have a zeal for God. They could be on fire for God, but they deny how they get this righteousness. This righteousness is from Jesus Christ alone. And people that look to establish their own righteousness, whether it's presenting the obvious evil in the political realm, and in order for you to be a part of this new system, you have to make the right choices and you have to live like this. You have to be righteous. Or if it's just within yourself, thinking that it's your faith or your good works or your behavior that has earned you a seat at the table and has earned you God's righteousness, apart from Jesus Christ's completed work, then that is another way that people are deceived by righteousness. Let me read this and then I'm going to close and finish with that here. This is Romans chapter 10, verse 1 through 4. Indeed, brethren, the delight of my heart and my petition to God for their sake is for salvation. For I am testifying to them that they have a zeal for God, but not in accord with recognition. For they, being ignorant of the righteousness of God, and seeking to establish their own righteousness, were not subjected to the righteousness of God. For Christ is the consummation of law for righteousness to everyone who is believing. And I think that right there will be the end time deception. It's going to be a worldwide call to righteousness. That's why this evil is being exposed, so that people will make decisions and become right. So it's righteousness as a whole, and it's righteousness in the individual person. So anyone that relies on their own righteousness to be saved denies the righteousness of Christ. And this happens in many forms. In the political realm, just choosing not to go with this evil and choosing the good side and doing everything they say is one obvious reason. They're using Jesus. Jesus is with them. Oh, I want to be right. I'm going to do what they say. Okay, so in order to do that, if you want to come with us and be saved, then you got to make the righteous decision like we did. That's one way, but it happens in subtle ways as well. For the Christian, they believe that it's their faith that saves them. So they don't believe that Jesus Christ died, was dead, and God resurrected him. That's how one gets salvation. If they believe that, then the person that they say is going to hell would be saved, because it was all based on Christ. Just like our death is all based on Adam, we inherited it from Adam. Then if they truly believe Christ did it, then that person would be saved. Okay, if that person is going to hell, why is that person going to hell? Oh, they didn't believe. Okay, so you just admitted that your choice to believe is your righteousness. Because Christ's death for sin, his entombment and his resurrection didn't save anybody unless that person makes a righteous choice to believe. So you're establishing your own righteousness. If you say, oh, you can't commit certain sins, if you don't stop sinning, if you don't act a certain way, then you're not saved. That is the law of sin and death. Jesus Christ ended the law of sin and death by completing the law, by dying and being resurrected. So that's gone. We are now in the grace of God. We get the righteousness based on what Jesus Christ did. If Jesus Christ completed the law, something that we could never do, why are you going back to it and trying to complete it yourself? Now, I'm not saying you don't walk worthily of what Christ has done for you. You do the best you can and you walk in grace, not in the law of sin and death. So walking apart from sin or managing your own life and not sinning, and you teach that in order to be saved, you have to do that, then that's your own righteousness. There's no mix. There's no we're doing this together in the sense that I died for your sin. I'm talking of Christ here. And you also have to overcome your sin. No, Christ did it all. He died for sin. He overcame sin. He died for death. He overcame death. He took on the old humanity and ended it. He dragged all of it into the grave with him. And when God resurrected him, that stuff remained in the grave, and Jesus Christ became a new creation. And he gives that new creation to us. And yes, each of us come in our own order. First, believers. But believers are given belief by God. Romans 12:3. Acts 13:48. Those who are set for age-long life, those God gives belief to. So belief is a gift from God for us to come to a realization of what Christ has done for us. Belief for anything that we do in and of ourselves does not make what Christ did for us true. Because if there's anything that you have to do in and of yourselves that someone else doesn't do, and you claim you have to do that in order to be saved, then that is your righteousness. You are establishing your own righteousness. The only way to get out of this deception is to understand that death is on us all by no choice of our own, and Christ took our sin, took our death, was dead, God resurrected him, and that and only that is what gives us God's righteousness. And if you believe that, then no amount of teaching, no amount of end time deception can deceive you. Thanks for watching.